Hi, I'm Linda Fox, Senior Reporter at PhocusWire, and I am with Travis Pittman, and he's CEO, co-founder of TourRadar. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So the first thing I want to talk about is your new B2B2C platform.
Yes.
Just briefly tell us what it's all about.
Yep. So we're calling it an adventure booking platform, and we aggregate 2,500 different tour operators from all over the world. We've been selling those products in our own marketplace for quite a while now, successfully. And we had a bit of a realization during the pandemic that there was a big opportunity to get this product in the hands of other resellers, other partners, providers, travel agents, that type of thing. So basically we announced last week that this is now live, and we have an API, we have a white label version, and we have a ability for travel agents to have their own login and actually earn commission on all of the products that we have.
Okay. Now, is this something that you would have done anyway? Was it in your future roadmap, or was it purely kind of pandemic driven?
Pandemic helped a lot. It helped us stop, hit reset, and actually look at how do we grow from a product-led perspective rather than actually just relying on marketing. And it was really, I think we put a lot of things on the table during the time, business models, everything. And this was one thing that we thought, okay, this is a big opportunity for us. And we actually started to run for. So, yeah.
Okay, now you've said twice that this is a big opportunity for you. How big?
How big? So there's a lot of numbers around market sizes, but I think the one thing we all agree on is multi-day tours are traditionally sold through offline channels. So travel agents, it's about 70% of the market. And there's estimates out there for different parts of the industry. We estimate it to be about 200 billion, the actual group, so tour industry, multi-day adventures. And there's a big part of that that's been offline. And these offline providers need to be digital now to also help their agents to be more efficient. So we have a few things in the pipeline now that are looking really good, like in terms of there's a lot of need and demand for this. And so, yeah, we thought, okay, we want to have the B2C side of things, but we also want to be able to help our partners and operators get their products in the hands of other resellers.
Okay, and do you think that, is this something that could actually be bigger than B2C?
It could be, yeah. So obviously it's very unknown. And so in terms of our modeling and predicting, but we think within 3-4 years, it could actually overtake the consumer side.
That was my next question. Yeah. And if so, you know, how quickly?
Yeah, so roughly, I mean, who knows?
Now, I think probably the last time you and I spoke, which was in Berlin maybe, and I think we spoke about funding. Obviously, you also got some funding, about 20 million last year. So 2 questions. Does the B2B2C side potentially help with keeping you funded? Because everybody seems to be talking about B2B again.
I think so. I mean, yeah, for sure, SaaS is obviously a hot area and getting a lot of funding. I think it's not just about funding, it's about the business being sustainable and healthy.
Sure.
I think that's what COVID showed us, is that when all of your revenue disappears overnight, because, what are you going to do? So how can we provide something that's still providing value and also bringing in some sort of revenue stream, even in difficult times. So I think that's and if that can be like a foundation that we can then have all the commissionable stuff on top, it starts to build a very solid business on top of it. So we're looking at it, and if that goes to a funding story that works and actually helps us, then great.
Yeah.
So
So that 20 million from last year, like what would be like? Can you name a sort of one significant thing that was used for?
It has been a lot, like I said, gone into product. So how we can actually not just spend it on the traditional channels in terms of marketing as such. So, and I think that's what we're seeing the benefits of now as we come out.
Which would have been a waste in the pandemic, right?
It is. I mean, that's the problem, is that we spend money to acquire a customer 6 months before they travel. That money, if they cancel, that acquisition cost, it's gone. I can't go to Google or Facebook or anyone and say, give me that money back. So it's really not money well spent in today's time. So it's very uncertain. So that's where we looked at how can we actually look at the business model and how can we do things differently.
Now, There must be elements of your business of kind of multi-day tours in general that actually, they played to the pandemic. Potentially small groups, rural areas, local feel experiences, that kind of thing. So equally, were there things about your business that didn't play to the pandemic?
Yeah, and so I think the group element, so pre-pandemic, we just sold scheduled itineraries. So it was groups, and the pandemic showed there's a demand for people to travel in their own bubble, to be able to customize trips or to have private tours. And that was functionality we built out to allow that now. And that was really key. And so we've seen probably about a 4 or 5 times uplift in private and tailor-made bookings. And it's like, 8,000 euro average order value.
Okay, that's quite nice.
As opposed to the usual, which is around 2. So it's a much healthier basket as well.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Exactly. No. But I think the other thing you touched on is the outside of cities, so rural areas. I really see what we're doing and what organized adventures or tours that we sell. I feel it has a really strong business case or use case when the travel comes back.
Yeah.
Because we all talked about over tourism. We saw Venice being empty. We talked about cruise ships and everything coming like that. And what tours do is they show you those bucket list places like Paris and Barcelona, but they also take you outside. And that's where the transport, the guide, everything like that helps you get out and facilitates that. And I think there's a huge opportunity if we market this well enough for consumers to understand that they don't need to just go spend 5 days in Paris. Like they could actually do something a little bit more local.
Yeah, Versailles, Fontainebleau, there's so much.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's where I'm very optimistic that this is the right product for the current times. Also that if you piece a whole trip together of 7 to 10 days, if 2 or 3 things go wrong, who do you contact? Like everyone's had really bad support, they've lost their money.
Things closing down
Yeah, and your border closes or somehow something's not open and a guide or the operator, they can fix it. They've had to do these things. So I feel there's really good opportunities there. The other things we are seeing smaller groups. So it's, we're seeing people wanting to be either in their own bubble or 10 to 20 people type group sizes.
Is that more labor intensive for you?
No.
Okay.
For the operators, potentially, because I think if you look at European with the coach trips, there were more people on the coach, but there's a lot of operators who have been operating 15 people group sizes. And so, no, it's not a huge change for quite a few.
Okay.
For some, it will be, for sure.
So one question we are asking people a lot is, what of these trends do you think are going to remain? And kind of like, are we talking medium term? Are we talking long term forever? What are we saying?
Yep. So we've seen, due to the lockdowns and border restrictions, domestic US travel for multi-day tours has actually picked up. So it's been good to see the operators innovating in that regard. We've seen like Alaska has been very popular. California, the fall foliage at the moment, there's tours for that. And so there's some really good domestic stuff happening. Australia, there's been a lot of innovation. I think Intrepid have done their like Tasmania local living trips and they've had to adapt to that as well. So I think those things are going to stay because there's people who would love to go overseas, but sometimes don't have the time. But they still want to get away for a 5 or a 7 day trip and still have that kind of group experience and meet new people and that sort of thing. So the other one is around how do we travel better and more responsibly? And that's, I think, the cool thing about a lot of the adventure providers that are on the platform. They kind of do a lot of it.
Yeah, because they're already fulfilling that kind of local supplier kind of need, I suppose.
Yep. How do they support the local communities? How does the money stay in those communities? How does it employ people there? And I think that's the really exciting challenge. Like we're working with a few groups like Jeremy at the Future of Travel Coalition and Travelers to see how do we close that intention gap to actually acting, like, where they intend to actually do something better and travel more responsibly, but how do you actually close that gap? So I think if we can help as a platform close that gap and educate the operators, and also how do they communicate that better to customers, I think there's a really good story to be told there. And it's not about price, I don't think. I don't think if you have to pay a little bit more for a trip that's more responsible or more sustainable, people, if they understand why and what it's doing, are willing to pay that, because they're paying $3,000 for a trip anyway. What's another $50 or something like that if it can help?
To make them feel good about themselves, then I think people will do it.
Yep, exactly.
How did you stay inspired in the pandemic?
There was tough times, not gonna lie. It was pretty times where you just question a lot of things. But yeah, I think the really great thing that I had was the team. So we have an amazing team. We obviously went through downsizing, which was brutal, but the team who stayed have stayed very loyal and very supportive. And I don't think I would have got through without them. There's been support from investors and shareholders and obviously a lot of people friends and whatever going, I don't know how you're doing this, but how you're getting through, but just keep going.
Go into work with a smile in your face every day.
Basically. So no, and obviously family, and a little bit of my own personal, I use sport and the outdoors a lot to actually keep sane. To try and keep my head
healthy.
clear.
Yeah. Travis, thank you very much for joining us in the studio.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, nice one.